Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile. This is the Aune X1s GT, and these are my honest audiophile impressions. I want to thank Linsoul for providing the Aune X1s GT for a review. To greatly appreciate it, Linsoul, you rock. Alright, so the Aune X1s GT. It'll set you back $320 on Linsoul.com. It's a DAC amp. And when Linsoul asked me if I was interested in reviewing the X1s GT, I was like, yes, very much so. Why? Because I used to own an X1s about 4 years ago, and I really did enjoy it. So I was curious, what does the new version sound like? This is the 8th edition of the X1s, and it comes in this nice little box. You get all the accessories that you need. You get a power supply and a USB cable, and you get the X1s GT. Now this thing is capable of doing USB, coaxial, optical, and Bluetooth in. You can also get it in a non-Bluetooth version. Obviously this is the Bluetooth version. You can also get it black or silver. Obviously black is the version we're reviewing today. On USB, you can have capabilities of having 32-bit 768 kilohertz bit rates, or DSD 512. Coaxial, you get 24-bit 384 kilohertz, or DOP 128. Optical, you get 24-bit 192 kilohertz and DOP 64. So it'll do all the bit rates that you want. And plus, if you get the Bluetooth version, you get Bluetooth as well. And it'll do LDAC. Your outputs, it does have an output level of 2 VRMS and SNR of 120 decibels. DNR of 120 decibels. THD is at 0.00013%. Output power for your headphone out, 1/4 inch. It's not very strong. It's 320 milliwatts at 32 ohms. 4.4 balanced output. It'll do 1200 milliwatts at 32 ohms. It does include some other information, which I will link the Aune website, and they can explain all the extra stuff that's internal. It also has filters. It has a standard and pure functions. Filters 1 and 2 are for standard, and then 3 and 4 are pure. And each one of those has general and headphone. So you have standard general, standard headphone, and then pure general and pure headphone. The differences between standard and pure are pretty much night and day differences. On standard, it kind of sounds a little lackluster, compressed, and very warm. And I really didn't like standard too much whatsoever. It really rolls off the treble, and it just makes everything sound pretty dark. Pure changes that. It goes into a more open, more natural and airy presentation, and you get a lot better detail retrieval and resolution, and overall pure just sounds better. And to my ears, pure sounds like a version of Bit Perfect. The differences between general and headphone are very subtle and are extremely hard to notice. But the only thing that I really notice between general and headphone filter is that you get a little bit better of a soundstage representation. It seems like it has a little bit better depth and layering, and maybe just a little bit better imaging. Other than that, it's pretty close. So I pretty much left it on filter number 3, which is pure general. All right, so the X1s itself. On the front, you have this big, very nice and smooth volume knob. Love that. Feels just like my original X1s. I always liked the volume knob, and it just is well controlled, big enough to use, and it has a red line to tell you where you're at. You have 1/4 out, 4.4 out, and then you have 4 LEDs that will give you some information regarding your source and also your filters. And then you have your selector button. Pressing once will change source. Double tapping very quickly will change your filters. On the back side, you have a variable output and a fixed output of RCAs. You have optical in, coax in, USB in, and then whatever that is considered. I don't know what that's called. And then you have your Bluetooth, your power switch, and your power supply input. Overall, I really like the layout of it. It felt very well thought out, and none of the cables overlapped and were getting tangled or bumping into each other and causing problems. Everything is very well spaced. And then the build of it just feels very nice. And yeah, it has that little arch to it, which is Aune, and just looks cool and different than everything else. There is one other thing I want to show you. So when you have it turned on, you get a red volume ring, which is really nice. And then you can see the LEDs. So you can see that it'll filter through the various sources. And if I double tap it, it'll show you which filter. So it was right here. That means it was on filter number 3. If I double tap it again, it'll move to the next one. Now it's back to number 1, number 2, number 3. So overall, I really do like that feature. I think that is very well thought out, very simple and easy to use. And how does the Aune X1s GT sound? The Aune X1s GT reminds me of my original X1s slightly. And that is, it still has that Aune house sound in that it has a natural, warm type of presentation. But the original one that I had was a little bit warmer, a little bit thicker sounding, and was a little bit more just like lush and had more rounded top end. Whereas this one has better space and a lighter warmth to it. It's not as thick as the original. And I really, really do enjoy the sound of the X1s GT. Now, I used the headphone outputs of it, and I also used the variable outputs with the Monoprice MM5R speakers, and I used the fixed outputs with my various amplifiers in the back, the Head Amp GSX Mini, and the Drop 1 Linear, and I also used it as fixed going out to a preamp, and I used it with my various speakers through my Shit Audio Vidar. And I really did enjoy every single way that I listened to the X1s GT. I found that it has a proper warmth to it, a natural warmth. Everything sounds natural and accurate. It sounds very cohesive and balanced. Bass has good punch and slam, has just enough texture to give you the realism aspect of the bass, and it has good sub-bass rumble and grumble without being overpowering or dominant. It's very well controlled, and it just sounds accurate and true. Has a very nice tone and timbre. And then into the mids are the same way. They have a natural, realistic reproduction to them. Everything sounds proper. Instruments sound accurate and true. There's no unevenness. They're very balanced and cohesive, so there's no dips or valleys unless it's in the recording. And it overall just feels proper. Treble has good air, nice detail retrieval and resolution, and a nice crisp energy to it. And there's just this presentation about the Aune X1s that feels realistic and natural. Soundstage has good width to it, and it does a good job with imaging, and it has good depth and layering. Placement is very good. You can really hone in and say it's right there, it's right there, it's right there. And it does a very good job of portraying a realistic, natural presentation of sound. It does struggle slightly with detail retrieval. It's at times, I wish that I had just a little bit more, and I also wish that I had just a little bit more separation. At times, things can sound a little closed in, but overall, the X1s does a really good job of portraying a natural and accurate soundstage and an accurate and overall presentation of the music. I find that it plays well with IEMs. With headphones, it's not quite as good. It really struggles with harder to drive headphones, planars, and any headphone that's pretty much about 150 ohms or higher. It really does struggle to drive those headphones, and you run out of headroom very quickly. But with IEMs, it's very, very good, especially even with planar IEMs. But overall, I find that it works best with IEMs, okay, with easier to drive headphones. I find that the Aune X1s, the Aune X1s is an excellent DAC amp for an office or for somebody who needs has a very limited space and doesn't have very hard to drive gear. If you're looking for a small device that has all the inputs that you need, USB, coaxial, optical, and Bluetooth, and then has fixed and variable outputs and has enough power for the majority of gear other than the hard to drive stuff, the Aune X1s GT is a very good option. At $320, that's about what you would pay for two separates to pair up together. So I really do recommend the Aune X1s. It has a very natural and accurate with good tonality and timbre and quality detail retrieval and resolution. It's been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Speaking of next video, somewhere on screen, subscription links, notification bells. If you haven't already checked those off, don't forget to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the video. Check out the links down below. There's all kinds of information down there regarding music recommendations, tier lists, and all kinds of other things down below. And also, there's ways that you can contact the channel, follow the channel, support the channel. All that kind of good stuff is down below. Don't forget to enjoy the music, and that honesty is the best policy.